Welcome to the Season 5 compilation of the Quest Lore series, where I complete 20 more quests, ending with one small favour. Mountain Daughter. In the mountain camp, Hamel the chieftain tells you that his tribe left Relica long ago to pursue a more natural way of living. But as the years have gone by, the land which they've settled has provided less resources and less food to eat. Hamel is reluctant to move without his daughter, who's gone missing. You dig up some mud and use it on the tree at the shining pool so the bark isn't slippery anymore. Then you use a pole to hop and a plank to walk across the water. Here you convene with the spirit of the lake, hearing the voice of the chieftain's daughter, Asleaf Hamelsdotter, who is dead. She asks you to make peace between her tribe and Relica and to also find a new food source for the camp. Hamel says he sent a representative named Svidi to talk about improving relations with Relica and maybe set up a basic trading route. Jokul the herdsman heard of a fruit called White Pearl which can grow on mountains. Svidi hasn't been to Relica yet because he's suspicious that they'd kill him, so he wants a guarantee of safe passage before going. Brunt the chieftain will give you the guarantee if you bring him an ancient rock which the mountain tribe took long ago. On top of the White Wolf Mountain you get the White Pearl fruit, gathering its seed. Then you mine the rock, getting half of it, which you return to Brunt, who gives you the guarantee of safe passage. Now Svidi is confident enough to go to Relica. You give the White Pearl seed to Hamel and then speak with the spirit of the lake again. To convince Hamel that his daughter is dead, you have to find and return her dead corpse. In the cave just around the lake, past a dense patch of trees, you find the Kendall. Based on the mythical legend of the bear god, this is actually just a man in a bear suit who has killed and eaten victims that passed nearby and fell prey. You kill the Kendall and find the corpse of Asleaf Hamelsdotter. Hamel says that she's been gone for over 14 years, and that the patch of trees was to stop people from disturbing the Kendall, which he believed to be a bear god. Now convinced of his daughter's passing, Hamel asks you to give her a proper burial in a cairn with an item of her possession. He happens not to have any, but Ragnar hands you her necklace. You bury her with 5 muddy rocks, putting her soul to rest. You also now have the bear mask. Completing this quest is a requirement for the Fremenic exiles. Animal Magnetism. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Ernest the Chicken and Priest in Peril. Ava has moved into the haunted mansion, but her bed is currently uncomfortable and she would like it to be fixed. To do so, she would like you to gather a few undead chickens from Port Phasmatus. You ask Alice about the undead chickens on her farm and she directs you to her dead husband, Malcolm. He says that ever since the Ectophuntus has been active, the animals have turned into zombies, and he has also passed away. He would like you to tell his wife that he still loves her. You talk to her to let her know that he still loves her, despite his ghostly state, and she wants to know what he did with all their savings. Unfortunately, he spent it all on drinks. You don't tell her that, and instead say that he put the cash in the bank, but now she needs to know the bank pin. Malcolm won't trust you with a bank pin, so to resolve this issue, you talk with the old crone who can make a ghost speak amulet by using one of Alice's hairs. This is given to Malcolm, and now he chases the undead chickens, who get cornered by the elite cow killer. For 20 ecto tokens, you purchase 2 undead chickens. Ava is happy she now has a comfy place to sleep using 1 chicken, and the other is going to be used for a potential experiment regarding ammo. She now directs you to the witch living in the mansion, who can make a magnet. 5 iron bars are handed to her, making a selected iron bar. Then you go to the mine in Remington and face north, hitting the bar with a hammer, which magnetizes it. With the undead chickens for feathers and a magnet for metal, Ava just needs a piece of living wood to complete her experiment with arrows. Outside the manor, you attempt to cut the undead tree, but the axe bounces off. Ava mentions the Slayer Master Turiel, who makes a blessed axe with a mithril bar and a holy symbol. The silver of the symbol can cut the undead wood. Cutting undead twigs, Ava has what she needs to assemble the components together, but she can't translate the schematics. Putting the correct bits of information together, you are able to translate the notes. Combining the notes with some hard leather and some polished buttons, you make the container. She now combines it with the magnet and the undead chicken, making a ruse accumulator. Completing this quest is a requirement for Dragon Slayer 2. Bone Voyage. To start this quest, you must have completed Dig Site. The museum has recently made a discovery of an island north of Mauritania. Seeing that you have helped the museum before, you are invited to help on the expedition. The boat just needs some final touches. The barge foreman says that they need a special kind of wood to make the boat. The sawmill operator in the Varrock lumberyard has recently made a deal with the woodcutting guild, and now the barge foreman should have the redwood delivered. On board the boat, you talk to the lead navigator, who tells you about how the previous expeditions have failed. For example, the 9th version of the ship was built using magic logs. It gained a form of sentience and developed a serious depression, running itself aground near Grandor. At the Rusty Anchor Inn in Port Sarim, you speak with Jack Seagull. He mentions the lucky charm could help to relieve the curse of the voyage, and directs you to the odd old man near Patadomus. Ahab alternatively recommends a potion of sea legs. The odd old man gives you a bone charm, and giving an unfinished Marantil potion and 2 bottles of vodka, the apothecary makes the potion of sea legs. You hand the lead navigator the potion and the junior navigator the lucky charm. The potion knocks the sailors unconscious, and now it's up to you to navigate the barge. As long as you're sailing northward and not going off course, you make progress towards the island. Eventually you make it, discovering new land. Completing this quest is a requirement for Dragon Slayer 2. Edgars' Ruse. To start this quest, you must have completed Druidic Ritual, Death Plateau, and Troll Stronghold. Sandfu needs a rare herb called Goutweed for a ritual to restore the Stone Circle. This herb can only be found in Trollheim. He refers you to Edgar, who's living in a cave at the top of Trollheim Mountain. You recently saved him during the Troll Stronghold quest. He says that the troll chefs should know where to find the goutweed. Speaking with Burnt Meat, he says that he'll tell you where it is if you bring him a human to cook. Edgar comes up with a plan to fool the trolls by giving them a fake man that looks, smells, tastes and talks like a human. To do so, a scarecrow is made with some logs and 10 grain, stuffed with 5 raw chicken, because everything tastes like chicken. Clothed with some smelly robes you collect from Tegid, the druid in Tavali, and most important of all, a talking parrot. To get one at Yardoin Zoo, you learn that they love eating fruit, but easily become sick when fed alcohol. So you douse some pineapple chunks in vodka and feed the parrots through the aviary hatch. The zookeeper, Parroty Pete, notices you've grabbed the parrot, and seeing that it is ill, he's happy for you to take it to the vet, as the zookeepers are currently overworked and too busy. Now you place the parrot underneath the torture rack in Trollheim prison. After some time, it learns how to imitate the sounds of a human being not having a good time. Before handing the fake human to Burnt Meat, Edgar suggests making a potion that will make the trolls tell the truth. It requires a thistle, sometimes seen on the top of the mountain. Following Edgar's instructions, a fire is made to dry the thistle, then it is grinded with a pestle and mortar and added to an unfinished Ranar potion. With everything combined together, Burnt Meat cooks the fake man, and when you ask him where to find the goutweed, he says that it no longer grows and that the remaining supply is in the storeroom, with the key being in the drawers. You find that key, going into the storeroom and making it past the gate. Now, with some careful timing, you run past the trolls guarding the goutweed supply, quickly grabbing one before getting booted out. You return to Tavali, handing the rare herb to Sandfu, who rewards you by training you in herb lore. Completing this quest is a requirement for Dream Mentor and My Arm's Big Adventure. Between a Rock. To start this quest, you must have completed Fishing Contest and Dwarf Cannon. Dondercan the Dwarf is trying to mine a rock which is currently impenetrable. There used to be many more dwarves working on this, but they have given up as they didn't think it was a good time investment. Dondercan believes that there are treasures within the rock, or that if he could find a way to mine it, at least he would have a very strong material. He resorted to using cannonballs made from different metals up to runite, and even bought granite boots, but still not a scratch. Everything he's tried so far hasn't worked, so you offer to help him, and he says you might learn something at the library. The librarian doesn't know much about the rock, as it's baffled the dwarves for generations. He directs you towards the dwarven engineer, who then mentions a scholar named Rolad that used to work on Dondercan's team researching the rock. He's currently working at the dwarven mine south of the White Wolf Mountain. Whilst here, you buy an ammo mold from Nelodian. No Lad found an interesting book during his travels on the topic of the impenetrable rock, but unfortunately pages are missing. He says you could try to find them in the mines below. So you search the minecarts, kill a scorpion, and mine some rocks to find 3 pages of the Dwarven lore. The book now tells the story of a fight against a magical creature named the Arzinian being of Bordanzon. A brethren of dwarves used a yellow shining rock to chase and hunt this monster, but in the final moments it tapped into its Bordanzian essence so that all the stone and debris coalesced into a single rock. After hearing about the potential risk of encountering or even releasing a monstrous being, Dondercan's attention is completely diverted by the prospect of finding gold. You experiment with firing a cannonball made of gold to see if this has any effect, and it goes right through the rock. Dondercan now comes up with a plan to fire you into the rock with a golden helmet on. You're handed a schematic so that you can create the golden helmet. And you'll also need to find another schematic to transform the cannon into a human firing variety. You use the dwarves' engineer's anvil to make the gold helmet, and the engineer hands you another part of the schematic. The last page of the book has the third part, which you rip from the book and then assemble with the others. The schematic to transform the cannon into a human firing one is held by Korvac, who's at the White Wolf Mountain pub. He gives you it for some dwarven stout. Dondercan reads the schematics to transform the cannon, and you put your golden helmet on and you're fired into the rock. You realise that you're not on the other side of the rock but actually within it. With the sheer amount of pressure being exerted on you at this moment, you feel that you won't last more than 8 minutes within this cave. To weaken the creature, you mine at least 6 gold, and then at the end of the cave you jump over a wall of flames and approach the central circle. Here you speak directly with Arzinian, being of Bordanzon, and then fight it until it's defeated, at which point you return to the outside world. Now Arzinian won't be able to escape for a few thousand more years. Dondercan gives you his rune pickaxe. The feud. You buy a fake beard and a Caridian headpiece from Ali Morrisane in Al Kharid. Put together, they make the desert disguise. Ali Morrisane's nephew, Ali from Polnivnich, was meant to become his assistant in selling wares, but hasn't appeared yet, so you investigate for him. You take a magic carpet ride to Polnivnich and buy 3 beers from Ali the barman. These are used to gather small pieces of information from drunken Ali, and the only thing you find out is that Ali had a run-in with the thugs and hasn't been seen since. These gangs are fighting each other after a dispute about the rival gang stealing their camel. You speak with Ali, the operator of the Menethite thugs and the rival bandits, asking if receiving a camel from the other gang will restore peace, which they say that it could. You buy 2 camels for 1,000 coins from Ali the camel man, and when you give the receipt for one of the camels to the bandits and the Menethites, they think that this is just a cheap way to earn the other gang's trust. The street urchin tells you that the 2 gangs are basically just a bunch of thugs who have nothing better to do than cause trouble. The mayor had hired one band to disband the other, but this only amplified the problem. After seeing your resourcefulness in trying to resolve the dispute, Ali the operator puts you on a task to pickpocket 3 of the villagers, so you can join the thugs. First it's a simple pickpocket, but the villagers wisen to your attempts, and now you get the help of a street urchin by offering a little bit of money to distract a second villager so you can pickpocket them. Word quickly spreads in this town, and the villagers won't fall for the distraction again, so Ali the operator hands you a blackjack to knock the villagers out, making it much easier to pickpocket them. With the 3 pickpockets complete, Ali the operator puts you on the first trial. He wants you to steal the mayor's wife's jewels. You equip some gloves so that you can hide within the cactus. When the coast is clear and nobody's home, you then run to the front door and use the key that Ali the operator gave you. Upstairs, under the bed, you find a note saying Fibonacci, and behind a painting on the wall you find a safe. Using the Fibonacci sequence as the code, you enter the numbers 1, 1, 2, 3, 5 and 8, retrieving the mayor's wife's jewels. Ali feels like he can trust you as you haven't got the wear and tear of someone who's been committing crimes his whole life. He now wants you to find a traitor amongst his men. You find out that the one who might have committed a crime and betrayed the men is traitorous Ali, which Ali the operator for some reason had no suspicion of. He wants you to now find him and kill him. In the pub you speak with Ali the barman, and find out that traitorous Ali was just in the pub a moment ago and he had left to relieve himself. Outside you give a coin to the snake charmer and you say that you want to charm a snake as well, so he hands you a snake charm flute and a snake basket. Out in the desert you use the snake charm to capture the snake. Afterwards you go to the kebab shop and speak with Ali the kebab seller. You talk about the sauce used in the spicy kebabs and are given a bottle, which you add to the camel's trowel. The camels eat it and the sauce goes right through them, so you collect their dung into a bucket. Now you make your way up to the house on the hill to speak with Ali the hag. You ask for some help in getting rid of traitorous Ali, which she happily helps you with, as he is not well renowned for being good. She needs some snake poison, and then to disguise the scent of the poison she needs some fresh camel dung. The potion is made with the two items and you use it to poison traitorous Ali's drink in the bar. Ali the operator is happy with your work, so you can now speak to the boss of the gang, the Menethite leader. When you find out that he's a madman that's planning for world domination, you show your distaste and he sets his guard on you. When you're about to deal with the leader, he teleports away. Having dealt with the thugs, you speak with a villager. Unfortunately, getting rid of their leader created a bit of a disbalance between the gangs, and now instead of fighting each other, they're focusing their attention on robbing the villagers. You have to fix this issue, so you go to deal with the bandit leader and defeat his champion. You ask him to tell you where Ali Morrisaine's nephew is, as you believe that his disappearance has to do with the gangs, but the bandit leader doesn't talk. Speaking with the villagers again, they're still not satisfied because of all the crimes that you've committed during your time here. It seems at this point that all you've done is stir trouble, but the mayor is appreciative that you've reduced the problem to a more manageable size. He also mentions Ali Morrisaine's nephew, stating that he angered the Menethites when he sold them many goods that they actually didn't want. And he's also planning to start a new trading operation with 40 people. You update Ali Morrison with the news of his nephew, but now you realise a few parallels between Ali Morrisaine and his nephew. Both are unscrupulous salesmen, both are from Polnivnich, and both can no longer trade there. Connecting the dots, you conclude that all the Alis were working together, providing you with an adventure that you didn't expect until this very moment. Completing this quest is a requirement for My Arm's Big Adventure, Iglonis's Little Helper. To start this quest you must have completed Gertrude's Cat. North of Sophonem, you meet a wanderer in the desert who's afraid of your cat. The wanderer will tell you how to get into the city of Sophonem if you put it away. Currently there is a plague infesting the city and you can't get in without knowing the secret entrance. Before telling you, you bring some supplies but then get hypnotized. The next thing you know you're in the city and have a strange headache accompanied by a feeling of guilt. You head into the pyramid and in a state of hypnosis you feel the need to get to the heart of it. You pass the traps and at a door with a panel on it, you solve the puzzle which unlocks the room. At this point you recognize that you have been hypnotized by the wanderer in the desert but are not entirely sure why. You only have a faint impression that you are meant to get something from here. Without knowing it, you had an unholy symbol in your inventory, and when you entered the room in the pyramid, you took a canopic jar. The Sphinx outside the pyramid is the guardian of the felines, and tells you about the Menethite pantheon of gods, which is made up of 4 deities. The 2 main gods of the pantheon are Tumakun, the god of light, and Elidinis, the goddess of fertility. Tumakun and Elidinis had 2 children, Iglorin, who is the god of the dead, and Amaskut, also known as the Devourer, who is the goddess of destruction. The Devourer wishes to destroy every soul in existence, living or dead, but this comes with conflict for Iglorin, who takes care of the passing of souls to their next life. In Gillinor, cats are used to protect the dead from the Devourer, and the Sphinx protects the cats. The Devourer is terrified of cats for some reason unknown. In return for the protection, Iglorin has provided the Sphinx with eternal life. Now you're told to speak with the High Priest and are given a token to show that you've been sent. The city is currently being plagued, and the High Priest blames himself as he's only just been appointed a role. Menethos, the neighbouring city, has closed its gates to everyone else. You enter the pyramid again, avoiding the traps and making your way to return the jar of Forgans to its place as a gesture of respect. But as you jump over the hole, you return to your hypnotized state, remembering the vision of your past and seeing the jar you stole. Now knowing which jar it is, and no longer being in your hypnotized state, you jump over the gap again, solving another puzzle, and enter the room to drop the jar back in its place. Now the priests want to reconsecrate Clentor's tomb, so preparations have to be made. The carpenter needs willow logs to make the holy symbol, and the embalmer needs a bucket of sap, a bag of salt, and some linen, which is bought from Raytool for 30 coins. With everything ready, you head back into the pyramid and get another flashback, this time seeing yourself place the unholy symbol behind the sarcophagus so a mascot can teleport in when the ceremony happens and kill all the priests in one fell swoop. As you enter the tomb to warn the priests, the Wanderer appears, who was a mascot all along, and she sets a hypnotized priest on you, which you swiftly deal with. With the mascot's plans thwarted, the holy symbol is given and the ceremony proceeds. As you exit, one final flashback happens, where Iglonis interacts directly with you, being able to counteract a mascot's hypnosis and using your assistance to stop her. For all the help you've done, the High Priest gives you a cat speak amulet. Completing this quest is a requirement for contact, rat catchers, and a tale of 2 cats. To start this quest you must have completed Iglonis' Little Helper. Unferth has lost his cat Bob. Unferth's friend Hild, just across the road, may be able to help you find Bob. Hild is able to speak to cats, and for 5 death runes, she enchants your amulet so that you can locate Bob. You also learn that cats own humans, not the other way around. Bob's been away from home as he's wanted to spend some time alone. He's madly in love with a cat called Nate, but she won't date a cat who doesn't have status, and unfortunately Bob does not remember his parents. His earliest memories is of being raised by Gertrude, but she doesn't know Bob's parents. Your cat asks to mention Robert the Strong to see if she knows of him, but she doesn't, so she directs you to Reldo in Varrock Palace. Robert the Strong was a mighty warrior that lived during the 4th Age, and your cat seems to believe that Bob the cat is a reincarnation of Robert the Strong. Speaking with Bob once again, your cat says that Bob used to be Robert the Strong, a great hero, but Bob has no memory of it. Your cat remembers when you were hypnotized and that the Sphinx was able to restore your memory, so now your cat suggests going to the Sphinx. You make your way over to the city of Sophonem, and the Sphinx knows that Bob has a mark of power on him. In the desert, Bob is teleported to find out who he really is. During his hypnosis, he sees his past life as Robert the Strong, walking into a tower where there is a dragonkin. Odysseus the cat attacks Grisha, but unfortunately perishes, as almost does Robert the Strong. Now knowing Bob's past as Robert the Strong, Nate is summoned and she's now interested in Bob, and they decide to go on a vacation for a few days. In the meantime, Bob asks you to take care of Unferth for him while he's away, handing you a list of chores to complete. You light a fire, add a chocolate cake onto the table, use a bucket of milk to fill the glass, make Unferth's bed, use the shears on him to cut his hair and his beard, maybe too much now he's gone bald, and outside you rake the garden patch and then plant some potato seeds. With the chores complete, Unferth starts acting ill and requests a doctor. The apothecary gives you a doctor's hat which you equip alongside some white desert robes. You grab a vial of water and he seems to think that he is now better. Then you find Bob again, who is hanging out with Nate. They have been all around Gillinor and even flew on a magic carpet. They also paid the King Black Dragon a visit. He's still encountering many adventurers trying to kill him. Bob left a present for you which you collect from Unferth. Completing this quest is a requirement for Dragon Slayer 2. Rat Catchers. To start this quest you must have completed Gertrude's Cat and Iglonis' Little Helper. Gertrude mentions that you may be interested in 2 ladies who know about rat catching. You find them in the sewers under Varrock. Before teaching you, they request for you to hunt 8 rats. You catch them, but the sisters don't feel like they've got much to teach you, so they direct you to Jimmy Dazzler in Ardoyne to learn about the rat pits. Just north of Ardoyne Castle, you meet Jimmy Dazzler, who's been expecting you. He will teach you a thing or 2 about cats if you complete a task for him. He gives you directions to a mansion where you need to catch rats undetected. There are guards on watch and you've got to avoid their line of sight to be able to make it into the mansion. Sneaking your way around, you climb up a trellis and then make your way into a room where you hunt the first rat. Then you sneak into the other rooms until you've caught all 6 rats. Once completed, you teleport out and return to Jimmy Dazzler. He tells you that there's a rat catching pit just down the ladder in his house, and if you want to learn about overgrown cats, he recommends that you speak with Hook-Nosed Jack in Varrock. Hook-Nosed Jack is currently busy working 3 jobs, so you offer to help, and he instructs you to deal with the rat infestation in a rundown building just south. He needs a qualm, an empty vial, and some red spider's eggs to make rat poison. This is used to poison some cheese, and then used on the rat holes so that you can deal with the rat population. Hook-Nosed Jack's cat, Pox, was hunting the rats and must have killed some of the poisoned rats as it has now become ill, so he directs you to the apothecary to find a cure. The apothecary needs a bucket of milk, some ground unicorn horn, and a leaf of marantil which you hand him, and then he blends them together, making the cat anti-poison. The largest rat in the building still hasn't been killed yet, so you have to deal with it. As you can't get into the section of the building where the king rat is, you use your cat on the hole in the wall to fight it. You can heal your cat by feeding it fish through the hole, giving your cat the advantage. Now that the king rat has been defeated, you have completed your promise to Hook-Nosed Jack in dealing with a rat infestation. Unfortunately, he isn't an expert on larger cats. He tells you to speak with Smoky Joe in Keldagrim, who's been trying to smoke out the rats in the hole. The smoking device that Joe uses is a simple pot with some weeds in it, and then you light it and use it on the rat hole. First time you do it, you notice that the rats come out the other side, and so the second time you do it, your cat is ready on the other side to hunt the rats. Now that you've helped Smoking Joe, he recommends that you meet the Face in Port Sarim. The Face says that you can meet Fellcrash in the pits, who tasks you to deal with all the rats in Port Sarim in one fell swoop, just as she did many moons ago. But she won't give you any advice on how to do so, at which point you try to charm the Face, who tells a long story about Fellcrash's feat with the important detail of the Snake Charmer in Polnivnich. Speaking with the Snake Charmer, you manage to convince him to give you the flute melody to charm the rats for 100 coins. Playing this melody in Port Sarim, the rats start appearing out of nowhere, drawn to your music, and then they each jump off the pier and drown in the water. Having played the role of the Pied Piper, you return to Fellcrash, who is completing her poem. You now learn that she can only train overgrown cats into wily cats, and you now have access to the rat pits beneath Port Sarim, Ardoin, Varrock, and Keldagrim. Tears of Gothics. Juna has been guarding the Tears of Gothics for 3,000 years. She's become bored and wants to hear a story. She believes that you, as an adventurer, have many to tell. The more she enjoys your stories, the more time that she will give you in the cave to then drink the power of balance, which makes you stronger in whatever you are weakest in. First you need to make a bowl with the magic rocks, as it is the only stone that can catch the Tears of Gothics. Using a sapphire lantern, you shine the light towards the light creature. It is attracted to your beam and comes towards you, then carrying you across the chasm. Here you mine a magic rock. Using a chisel on the magic stone, you make the stone bowl and the quest is complete. You now have access to the Tears of Gothics. Garden of Tranquility. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril and Creature of Fenkenstrain. Queen Ella Maria would like the Varrock Palace gardens to be more elegant for her husband King Rold. She patronisingly asks for your help and gives you a list of items needed for the garden. She also directs you to the Wise Old Man to learn about the fine art of diplomacy. Before leaving, you put compost in the garden pots. The Wise Old Man tells you that before royalty, Ella Maria used to be a barmaid at the Blue Moon Inn. You then tell him that you have the Ring of Karos. Karos was Lord Draken's servant, a sophisticated diplomat, spy, assassin and negotiator who could convince anyone to do his wishes. He crafted a ring to help with that purpose and had the castle built in the north of Mauritania. Rumours say that he became overconfident in his abilities and tried to turn on Lord Draken, but had no effect for he is too strong, and now Karos is presumed dead. The Wise Old Man can enhance the ring by activating it, but he quizzes you first to determine if you're diplomatic enough for its possession. Next you talk to Elston in the Falador farming patch. He hasn't got many delphinium seeds left, but after some prompting, he says he'll give you some if you grow him some marigolds, which he plans to give Lyra in Mauritania. Lyra hasn't had a lot of success farming in the Mauritania patch, as there's little trade and unfavourable farming conditions. Also, as blood types are owed to the vampires, she's been luring young farmers to Mauritania to take the blood type in her family's stead. As she has no use for the yellow and pink orchid seeds, she'll give you to them after a test to grow onions, which you comply in doing so. In the Ardoin farming patch, Kragan is irritated that his services are always being used, but no one offers to help him, so you give him a helping hand. As there are already plenty of potatoes in the field nearby, and he doesn't need onions, he would like you to plant some cabbages in exchange for the snowdrop seeds. Next you speak to Dan Taylor in the Cafferby farming patch, asking for assistance on how to grow a white tree. She initially says that there are no more in the world, as expensive furniture was made with their pure white wood. After being initially reluctant to talk, she eventually admits that there is now only one tree left on top of Ice Mountain. You ask if you can take a cut off the tree to attempt to grow a new one. This risk needs to be taken, for if not, there will be no more of this tree in Gillinor. She gives you her blessing to try and save the white tree. You cut a shoot from the white tree, getting the last chance for its survival. This you put in a plant pot and water. Next you head to the monastery and talk to Brother Alfric, who is growing red, pink and white roses. He can sense a powerful aura of persuasion on an item on you, so he asks you to throw it down the well in Edgeville, and that is exactly what you do. Now he can no longer sense that evil power, and you mention that you did throw the ring down the well. He says that you might be able to use a long stick with a string and a hook on the end to retrieve it back, but he hopes that he's not giving you any ideas. Now you're allowed to pick the seeds from the pink rose, the white rose and the red rose, and then fish the ring of Carusback out of the well. In the Toad and Chicken pub in Burthorpe, you speak to Bernald, who is growing some vines, but they're not looking too happy at the moment. They've come down with a strange disease that Bernald has never seen before. You offer to help if he will give you some of the seeds off the Burthorpe vine. You use some plant cure on the grapevines, but it doesn't make a difference as it's not strong enough. He directs you to Elaine, a druid gardener in Tavaly. Asking about a stronger plant cure, you learn that you can mix some crumbled rune essence into a normal plant cure. You use a hammer on the rune essence to make it into rune shards, and then you grind it with a pestle and mortar to make rune dust. Mixed with regular plant cure, the stronger version saves Bernald's vines, and he hands you the Burthorpe vine seeds. Back in the Varrock Palace garden, you rake the weeds and plant the vine seeds, the white tree sapling, and the pink, red and white rose seeds. By now enough time has passed for the marigolds to have grown, and you trade them with Elston for the delphinium seeds, planting these two. Queen Ella Maria gives you a trolley to push some statues. In Falador, you hope that the guards don't see you pushing the statue of Saradomin. Billy is a new knight on his first shift and asks Bob what his plans are for the weekend. But Bob informs him that the average guard only lives for 30 seconds. For no apparent reason, someone is going to kill them completely unprovoked. And now you push the trolley off the statue into the Varrock Palace garden, placing it on the plinth, and then you do the same with the king statue from Lumbridge Castle. Now the onions have grown, so you can retrieve the yellow and pink orchid seeds from Lyra, and the cabbages for the snowdrop seeds from Kragan. After these are planted and enough time has passed for them to have grown, Queen Ella Maria wants you to fetch King Rold, or as she calls him, Rolly, to seed the garden. You show the king all the different flowers that you brought from around Gillinor, but initially he is ungrateful, claiming allergies, rashes, and saying that the white tree would make some great furniture. So Ella Maria knocks some sense into him and he shows gratitude. With that, the quest is complete. Completing this quest is a requirement for Swan Song, making history. To start this quest you must have completed The Restless Ghost and Priest in Peril. Jorrel is in the outpost northwest of Ardoin. King Lathus is planning to take down the building to build a new alchemist lab, which Jorrel isn't happy about, as he believes that this outpost must have some history which has yet to be uncovered. First he would like you to speak to the silver merchant Erin, whose grandfather used to live in the outpost. Erin hands you an enchanted key which changes temperature depending on how close you are to the chest it unlocks. This leads you to near the observatory. Unlocking the chest you find a journal which belonged to Drozel, who moved into the outpost alongside a bunch of powerful followers of Zamorak. Together they terrorized the city of Ardoin, causing a lot of trouble. They poisoned the city's water supply and turned the children invisible. One day the Saradominists and people of Ardoin revolted and they fought at the outpost. Jorrel thinks there's a ghost in Port Phasmatus who might be able to tell you some more. Joralak has a scroll with a timeline of events at the outpost, but he will only give it to you if you can restore peace in the relationship with his ghost wife Melina. He had promised her that he would return before he went to the outpost, but unfortunately he never did, and she still feels bad about it. He gave her a sapphire amulet on the day he left, so he would like you to give her a sapphire amulet. With this, she now feels complete and can pass into the next world. Duralak hands you the scroll, and you learn that the Zamorakians moved in on the 65th year of the 5th Age. The Great Battle took place 3 years later, and 3 more years after that, the survivors started a new line of kings in Ardoin and the equal trade market. He also passes into the next world. The last person you need to go to learn a bit more is a warrior called Dron, who has studied many wars and lives in Relica. First you speak to Blanin, who is the brother of Dron. Dron doesn't talk to people who don't know him well, so Blanin tells you a whole list of information. Now speaking with Dron, you don't mention that Blanin sent you, and you know that he wields an iron mace in battle. He eats rats for breakfast, kittens for lunch, and bunnies for tea. His favourite drink is red spider blood. He is 36 years, 8 months and 21 days old. He's studied the 5th and 4th ages. His house is on the northeast side of town. His brother's name is Blanin. His pet cat is named Fluffy, and 5 plus 7 is 12. After answering the strange questions to prove that you know him well, you ask about the history of the outpost near Ardoin. The battle ended on the top of the outpost between 2 ex-friends, one following the god of Zamorak and the other Saradomin. They decided to lay down their arms and both unite under the god of balance, Gothics. Spreading the word of equality, one started a market where they would trade their wares equally and fairly, and the other became the king, whose great-grandson is now King Lathus. Jorrel hopes to transform his outpost into a museum. He hands you a letter which he would like you to deliver to King Lathus, who reads the letter and realizes the importance of the outpost, agreeing to allow Jorrel to make it into a museum. You return to him with a letter from the king, and there is now a room displaying items. Here there's an interesting book written about your character that tells stories of some of your adventures. Completing this quest is a requirement for Song of the Elves, Spirits of the Elid. You speak with Awasar, the mayor in the town of Nada. The townspeople have been suffering a drought this last week. Uncertain of what could have caused it, it may have been that recently a Saradomian priest visited, but was then found dead by the river a week ago. One of the merchants from Polnivnich has taken the opportunity to exploit the Nardian citizens by selling ice at an outrageous price due to the recent discovery of ice making. You now speak with Gazlor the Elder. He thinks that the drought has got to do with the water guardians of the source of the river Elid. He hands you the Ballad of Jarish, which tells of Jarish's quest in trying to find spirits. In the town's temple, you telekinetically grab the ancestral key and find some torn robes in the cupboard, which you mend with a needle and thread. Going to the source of the river Elid, you use a rope to enter the cave behind the waterfall, and after equipping the robes of Elidinis, you use the key to be able to enter. When trying to enter the southern room, a white golem appears who is only weak to stab attacks. Then you clear the water channel using your thieving skills for it to flow. The eastern room is protected by a grey golem, weak to slash attacks, and you mine clear the water channel. Lastly, the northern room is protected by a black golem, weak to crush attacks. The water channel is cleared by shooting the target on the other side. With all 3 waterways cleared, you then enter the next area of the cave. Going around the underground lake, which is the source of the river Elid, you find 3 water spirits. They're the ones who killed the Saradomin priest and stopped the water from flowing to Nada because the townspeople turned away from their desert god Elidinis and also threw away her statuette. Updating Awasar, he remembers that they did throw it away into a crevice nearby. Before leaving, you pick up a pair of Awasar's boots and cut the soles off them. Entering the crevice, you find a genie who will exchange the statuette of fine craftsmanship for the soles of the mayor's shoes. Asking why he needs these, he says that he read that powerful beings are collecting souls these days. Placing the statuette back on its plinth, the curse is lifted and water returns to the fountain. Quest complete. Hand in the sand. Bert works the sand pit in Yanul, and he found a hand in the sand. You offer to lend him a hand. Talking to the drunk captain of the guard who is always in the pub, you hand him a beer, and then he says for you to talk to the wizards in the tower. You ring the bell and Zavistic Rav appears, who recognizes that the hand was of one of his top students, Clarence. To find out more information about the matter at hand, he asks you to find out why Bert has been working so many hours recently. Bert hands you his rota, and then you go to Brimhaven to check with his boss Sandy to see why the hours might have changed recently. You also ask about the murder of a wizard, but Sandy doesn't seem interested. Examining Sandy's rota on the table, you see that it's different from Bert's, but Bert thinks it might have been the magic leaking from the wizard tower that changed his hours. Zavistic Rav thinks that Sandy has a hand in this. He needs you to get a truth serum from Betty in Port Sarin, and he hands you a magical orb to record a conversation with Sandy. First, Betty needs an empty vial. Then she needs to make some pink dye from red berries and white berries. This tint makes a rose-tinted lens. Betty places a vial on the table and you stand in the doorway, focusing the light onto it. Now the last ingredient is to add something personal from the person who you want the potion to work on. So you pickpocket Sandy and get a bit of sand, which is added to complete the truth serum. For the potion to work, you just need to dilute it in something, like coffee. First you have to distract Sandy, so you say that there's a small parrot with a pink banana sitting outside his window. While distracted, you add the truth serum to his coffee and then you see him drink it. Now you activate the magical orb that the wizard handed you, and you ask why Bert's rota is different. Sandy wanted him to work longer hours without pay. Why doesn't Bert remember this? Well, because Sandy bribed the wizard to put a spell on him so he would believe anything that Sandy says. You ask what happened to the wizard and he says that he killed him so that he wouldn't have to pay the bribe. And then he put the body in the sand. Now with the truth you return to Zavistic Rav with the conversation recorded on the orb. Next he wants 5 earth runes and a bucket of sand. The sand pit is now automatically filling itself up, which means that Bert no longer needs to collect it from Brimhaven, but he's sad that he's not busy now. Lastly, you have to find the rest of Clarence's body. All the sand pits in the game have been checked except for the one on Entrana where you find Clarence's head. Bert will now deliver sand to your bank every day, and you can buy runes at the Wizard Tower here in Yanil. Quest complete. Inaccuras Lament. Near the quarry, you meet Lazim. He says he was a renowned sculptor who made statues for the kings and queens of Gielinor, but he has since laid down his hammer and chisel, so he needs an adventurer willing to help sculpt for him. To make the base of the statue, you firstly need 32 kilograms of sandstone, which you mine nearby. To make the body, you need 20 kilograms. He uses magic to put the sandstone together, and then you chisel it. Balking at the task at hand, he mentions that recently an adventurer sneaked a girl out of the bandit camp by carrying her in a barrel. Now you need to make a head from granite. You can choose to make the head of Zamorak or Icflorin. After you add the head, everything shakes as the statue falls into the ground and you fall after it. In here the doors are strange, but the keys seem to have the shape of arms and legs, so you mine them off the body. When you put the limb into the first door, your head hurts as you see a certain flashback of Inaccura completing the temple for her lord. In the following room you see a pedestal with a sigil on it, which you take. Another flashback happens at the next door of knights trying to stop the evil sorceress, but to no avail as she uses ancient magics. After picking up another sigil, the next door's flashback shows the ancient desert camel god Akthanakos trusting Inaccura, who plans to backstab him. After another sigil, the fourth flashback shows her using magic to make the guards out of bones. With a fourth sigil, you go to the center room, placing the corresponding letters on each door. These spell ZMRK, which indicate Zamorak. Up the ladder, you see a frozen water fountain, which you cast a fire spell on to get the waters running again. Then you see a man called Pentin, who seems to expect that you're going to torture him. He says he is hungry, so you give him some food. And then you ask about the room with smoke, and he says that a breeze might be able to clear it. And about the room that is dark, he says it used to be lit. A wind spell clears the smoke and activates the furnace, and in the dark room there are 6 braziers that burn 6 different fuels: normal logs, oak logs, willow logs, maple logs, a candle and some coal. These fully light the room again. At the central pedestal you place some soft clay to make a mould of a head and then chisel some granite in its shape. When placed, another flashback triggers, showing Inaccura betraying Akthanakos. You can now pass the magic barrier and climb to the top floor. A bone guard is defeated by using the Crumble Undead magic spell, and he's glad that he's finally been put to rest. Then in the final room, you use Protect from melee, and the last bone guard is impressed by your power, so he would like your help to finish building a wall to weaken Inaccura's spell over him. She had built a temple to assist in Zamorak's uprising to godhood, but Zamorak didn't care and had her trapped here. Stones are gathered from the pile, chiseled to become sturdy, and added to the wall. Akthanakos is no longer her slave and returns to his natural form. In a final cutscene, Inaccura laments Akthanakos not having given up after thousands of years. Now they are going north to fight one more time. Lazim is frustrated that you foiled Inaccuras' plans, but at least he has a Zamarakian temple to explore. If his suspicious look wasn't enough of a clear giveaway, at least now you know who he aligns with. Completing this quest is a requirement for Desert Treasure 2, Fairy Tale Part 1, Growing Pains. To start this quest you must have completed The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Nature Spirit and Lost City. Martin, the Master Gardener in Drainer Village, has noticed that a certain disease has spread across his crops, making them grow fewer vegetables and fewer berries. He wants you to find out what could be causing this disease and try to fix it. You talk to 5 of the advanced gardeners. Elston thinks it's the recent lack of rain. Frizzy Skernip thinks it's the insects eating the crops. Tresna thinks it's because adventurers keep using his garden patch without asking. Bolongo says it's because the seasons are out of whack these days. Lastly, Gillif says that all of these theories for why the disease is spreading are correct. She believes that the fairies could have to do with this. You equip the Drayman staff and walk into the hut in Lumbridge Swamp, teleporting you to the land of the fairies, Xanaris. In the fairy throne room, you look for the fairy queen but don't find her, instead seeing the fairy godfather, who says that the fairy queen has become sick recently. She's currently being taken care of by Fairy Nuff. It is the queen that cares for all of the plants and wildlife in Gielinor. Recently she fought against Tanglefoot but lost her magic secateurs and fell ill. You are given a list of symptoms which you are to deliver to a mage called Xander Horfire at the Dark Wizard's Tower west of Falador. He's friends with the Fairy Queen, but is not familiar with the magic needed to help her, so he points you to Malignius Mortifer. Amongst the elemental wizards, you find him, but he does not seem to be interested in helping you, so you go to Drainer Manor and dig up a skull from the grave north of the building, which he accepts in order to help. You ask Malignius how he defeated the Tanglefoot. The only thing that can defeat it is a pair of enhanced secateurs. You need to bring 3 random items to the Nature Spirit and ask for the ceremony of Phasma Phasmatis Natura. The Nature Spirit enhances your secateurs into their magical version. You return to Xanaris, and west of the Cosmic Altar, the Gatekeeper lets you through. Traversing the undergrowth, you fight the Tangle Root with your magic secateurs. When he is defeated, he drops the Queen secateurs, which you hand to the Fairy Godfather. Completing this quest is a requirement for Fairy Tale Part 2, Cure a Queen. To start this quest you must have completed Fairy Tale Part 1, Growing Pains. You update Martin the Gardener with your feat of saving the Fairy Queen. You explain that she was in a fight with Tanglefoot and lost the secateurs that contained her magic. You defeated Tanglefoot and gave the Godfather the Queen's secateurs. Martin says he's going to plant something, which will take about 5 minutes to grow, and he'll let you know if it worked. After 5 minutes, Martin says it didn't work. He planted more seeds, but none of them are growing, and he says that when people are starving, they'll blame you. So you make your way back to Xanaris, into Fairy Nuff's grotto, which you see has been destroyed. You take the health certificate that's on the floor and study it. There seems to be a strange language on the back. Just south of the bank in Xanaris, you speak with the chef, who says the symbols are similar to the markings near the Cosmic Altar. You find the same wiggly lines on the wall and then speak with the Fairy Godfather, saying you must find the Queen. He thinks it's a good idea for you to leave and go to look for her, and that you should come back to him once you find her. Next you speak with the Coordinator to learn how the fairy rings work. Xanaris is a very old place where the fairies live, and is rumoured to be the nexus of all planes. She explains how to use the fairy rings with the 3-digit codes. Near the fairy ring in Xanaris you talk to Fairy Fixit, and are now able to use the fairy rings. Firstly, you use the code AIR, then DLR, DJQ, and AJS, teleporting you to a secret location where you see many fairies. The Queen is still laying ill asleep, and Fairy Nuff is glad to see you. It turns out that the Fairy Godfather refused to give the magic secateurs to Fairy Nuff, appearing intent on the Queen dying. Godfather threatened everyone by pulling their wings off if they didn't work for him. An older fairy called Very Wise says that the Godfather has enlisted an army of orcs that have taken over Xanaris. Your job is to get back the Queen's secateurs. You use the fairy code BKS to get back to Xanaris, and there are now orcs roaming around. You try to pickpocket the Godfather when his henchmen are not looking. Now you go back to the Fairy Queen's hideout. Unfortunately, the magic secateurs don't work as she has been asleep for too long. So you need to make a potion of magic essence which has special ingredients. Going to the code CKP takes you to a magical area. In this mysterious realm, star flowers grow. This tends to take a couple of minutes. Once you've got the starflower, you then travel to the fairy code DIR, which is the land of the Gorax. Here protective prayers don't work. When it's defeated, you're able to get its claw. You make your way back to the hideout and use the starflower on a vial of water, crush the Gorax claw into Gorax claw powder, and then mix that into a magic essence potion. The magic essence is used on the queen, which awakens her. Her last memory is trying to fight the Tanglefoot with the Godfather, and only now she learns that he sabotaged her. He has taken control over Xanaris while she was asleep, and enlisted orcs and other ruffians. He has recruited an army of villains to maintain control. It is not wise at the moment for the fairies to go and fight, and the Godfather won't let her survive a second time, so they're going to stay at the hideout in the meantime. You're rewarded with XP and can now use the fairy ring transport system across Gielinor. Rag&Bone Man 1. The odd old man says he's an archaeologist, but it doesn't appear entirely true. He seems to be talking to a bunch of bones in his backpack. He says he is a few bones short of, quote, completing a display for the museum. He would like you to get them for him, fresh from the creatures and not dug up, and boil them in a pot of vinegar to make them sparkly. You get the bones from a goblin, a giant rat, a big frog, a monkey, a giant bat, a ram, a unicorn and a bear, and buy vinegar from Fortunato in Draenor Village. Back at the odd old man in Silveria, you burn some logs, and after about 12 seconds of boiling them in vinegar, you retrieve the polished bones, which you hand to the odd old man. Completing this quest is a requirement for Rag&Bone Man 2. To start this quest you must have completed Rag&Bone Man 1, but to finish it you must have completed Horror from the Deep, or a partial completion of the Fremenic Trials, a partial completion of Creature of Fenkenstrain and Waterfall quest, and a recommended but not strictly required partial completion of Zoga Flesh Eaters. Continuing from the event of the last quest, you collect bones from a Zoga, a cave goblin, a rat, a zombie, a moss giant, a baby dragon, a snake, a joga, an undead cow, an experiment, a werewolf and a ghoul, a humble bat, a desert lizard, a jackal, a vulture, a seagull, an ice giant, a moga, an ogre, a wolf, a troll, a cute little bunny rabbit, a basilisk, a terror bird, a dagganoth, and a fire giant. Then you boil each of these in vinegar and hand them to the odd old man, who laughs maniacally. And then you get a bone sack and a ram skull helm. One small favour. To start this quest you must have completed Rune Mysteries, Druidic Ritual, Jungle Potion and Shiloh Village. Yanni Salika asks you for one small favour, to get a piece of red mahogany from a nearby jungle forester. The jungle forester would love to give you a piece of red mahogany, but first needs their axe sharpened. Brian in Port Sarim will sharpen it if you can get Aggie the Witch to be a character witness for his friend who got into a brawl and risks going to prison. Aggie's apprentice, Jimmy the Chisel, has disappeared and she would like you to look for him first. You find him imprisoned at the Ham hideout, and Johannes Ulsbrecht will release him if you can get a month's supplies of chicken. Farmer Fred, who is related to Jimmy, hasn't got enough chickens, so you go to Seth Groats, who first needs 5 chicken cages. These can be made by Horvik in Barrock, but only after you give him 3 steel bars that Seth owed him for the plough being fixed. Unfortunately, Horvik is feeling sick and he also needs 5 pigeon cages. You talk to the apothecary, who hands you a herbal tincture, but when he's about to pass you the breathing salts, he accidentally drops the airtight pot that they're in. To get a new one made, he recommends talking to Tassie Slipcast at Barbarian Village, but she is currently too busy paying off a loan to Hammerspike Stoutbeard. The interest on the loan prevents her from being able to pay it off. Hammerspike is considering changing his gangster ways and becoming a druid. So you speak to Samfu, who will consider it if you first give a Gothic's rest to Captain Bleemage on top of White Wolf Mountain, and also arrange for him to visit the ogres in the Feldip Hills in the hopes of spreading the ways of Gothics. To make the tea, you put hot water in a cup and add 2 Guam, 1 Marantil and 1 Haralander, making a Gothic's rest, which you hand to the gnome. For him to be able to make the journey, he needs a light rope system made by Arhane in Catherby. Arhane can give you the rope system if you get a weather report from the Seers in Seers Village. Fantuti Fanstui Farsight is concerned with a local girl named Petra who has disappeared recently. He thinks that she may be in a cave with creatures. In the Goblin Cave's northeastern section, you find a sculpture in the shape of a human. When you examine the belt, it mentions wizard property. To break Petra out of the rock, you need iron oxide from Port Khazad. Tyndale Marchant hasn't slept well in a long time and he hands you a very poor looking mattress. He wants it to be filled with chompy bird feathers, so he directs you to Rance. Rance hasn't been able to catch any chompies recently because someone nearby has been making a lot of noise. You head west and find Normadium Alvafrim. He's working on extending the glider network to include Feldip Hills, but the lights need fixing. In each landing light you search and find a gem which you cut and place. These include jades, topaz, opals and sapphires. Now that you've fixed the 8 landing lights with the correct gems, they can turn on. Having done one small favour for Normadium Alvafrim by concluding the construction, you can return to Rance, who hands you the comfy mattress, which you give to Tyndall Marchant in exchange for the iron oxide. Wizard Crompety accepts the iron oxide for an animate rock scroll. Next to the human-looking sculpture, you read the animate rock spell, but accidentally target it in the wrong direction and a slagolith comes to life. Once defeated, you recast the spell and speak to Petrified, who lets the seers know that she's fine. Unfortunately, Fantuti Fanstui Farsight can't make a prediction of the weather at the moment because the weather vane is broken, so you climb upstairs to the roof and hit the weather vane with a hammer, getting 3 broken parts. You then go to an anvil and mend them with a bronze, an iron and a steel bar. The seer gives you the weather report and Arhane gives a rope system to Captain Bleedmage on top of the White Wolf Mountain, unlocking glides to the Feldip Hills. Sanfu says that the dwarf can train as an initiate if he would like, and he can see the ogres now if he wants. Hammerspike changed his mind about wanting to become a druid and doesn't live alone, so you kill his gang members, and now he says that he will leave Tassie alone. Tassie Slipcast gives you some clay and teaches you how to spin a pot lid, which you then fire in the pottery oven. You give the airtight pot to the apothecary and he puts some breathing salts in it. Then you hand Horvik the herbal tincture and the breathing salts, which make him feel much better, and you hand him the pigeon cages, which he transforms into chicken cages. These are given to Seth Groats, who supplies the chickens, and Johannes Ulsbrecht of the Hamhide frees Jimmy the Chisel. Aggie confirms that Jimmy has returned, and she agrees to be a character witness for Brian's friend. Brian says that his friend actually wandered off into the wilderness, and he asks you if you can go get him, but then he says he's just kidding and hands you the sharpened axe. This is given to the Jungle Forester for the red mahogany log, and finally you complete the one small favour for Yanni Salika. Completing this quest is a requirement for King's Ransom and Swan Song. Thank you very much for watching Season 5 of the Quest Lore series. Join me next time in Season 6, where I'll explain the lore behind A Soul's Bane.